One vote. One vote is all that prevented us from seeing the Purple Rock tiebreaker used on this week's episode of Survivor. Welcome to the Purple Rock Podcast. I'm your host, John Judge Reinhold, and I'm without my usual co-host this week. Andy is actually visiting the U.S., and he's unable to join us. So in Andy's place, I brought in our oft-hyped fellow AV Club commenter, M. Ratfink. I think I've dropped his name in just about every episode of this podcast so far. So, M. Ratfink, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Judge. It's good to be here. And you can call me Fink. You don't need to do the whole M. Rat part.
It's almost like saying your full name, so I should just stick to Fink. Okay, that's fine.
It's like calling out Brad Culpepper. You know, you can just call him Culpepper.
It's so much more awkward when you have to yell F you, Brad Culpepper. It's, you know, you don't want to say the full name.
Exactly. So just F you, Fink.
All right. So with that said, we want to get into very quickly how you ended up here. Much like Andy and myself, you are an AV Club commenter. Long-time listener, first-time caller in this case. Yeah, you've been commenting on the show, I want to say, pretty much every season that they've been covering it there, right?
Yeah, I think so. Because the coverage started pretty recently. It's only been the past, 3-4 seasons, I think.
Right.
Since One World? Or no, it started the one before One World.
The terrible second Redemption Island season.
Yeah, that one.
All right, so give us a quick history of your time with Survivor.
Sure. I remember watching the very first season when it aired, and I got really into it. And because of that, Richard Hatch has always been kind of like my pinnacle of gameplay for a while. But then I drifted away from the show, I think, sometime during the third season, and I think it was because I went to college around when that was airing, or right after when that aired.
It wasn't the massive starvation and just desperation of those Africa people?
I think that was the other part of it.
They really were just lying around on rocks and practically dying all day.
Yeah, as me and Andy have joked in the comments, I mentioned, I remember one episode like that. He said every episode was like that.
Yeah, it was pretty desperate out there.
Yeah. So after that season, I did not watch Survivor again until Samoa. And I have to admit that I had heard about what Russell Hantz was doing. It sounded very strategic and crazy, and so I checked it out, and I was pretty enthralled. I think I came in just slightly post-merge, and I was pretty enthralled by what I was seeing. And then the next season was, of course, Heroes vs. Villains, which I think is one of the top 3 seasons ever of the show.
Yeah, I think that was actually the season that brought me back after a hiatus, was Heroes vs. Villains.
So, and then since then I've seen every no, I did not watch Nicaragua right afterwards. I have no idea why. But
lucky you.
Yeah, I know, right? I managed to skip the worst one ever. And since then, I've been kind of going back on some of your guys' suggestions to see what are some good seasons in the past. So I've been catching myself up on that big gap in the middle.
Yeah, we've steered you to the right seasons to catch up on, too.
Yeah, I still have a few more that you guys recommend, but I think I've hit most of the good ones in there.
So now that we've established that you do know what you're talking about, let's talk about tonight's episode. What did you like? What did you not like?
I think the obvious thing to like is Tribal Council. That's
Let's save that one for the end.
Yeah,
but yes, agreed.
That was definitely the highlight. Tribal Council. I like the challenges here. I thought they were both pretty interesting. I especially like the variation on the classic stair challenge that we've been getting a lot lately. I feel like we've been seeing that one.
It feels like a lot of the challenges just in the past few seasons have been recycled, which sort of makes sense, I guess. But yeah, a little bit of stale challenges every now and then. But at least they do try to mix it up with new elements to old challenges.
Yeah, and I think the variation here actually really worked. Though, once again, the returnees really can't paddle, can they?
They really can't, but does it matter? I mean, apparently
no.
You would think that just these Survivor puzzles are just massively challenging. And I gotta say, I feel like my daughter could have managed that puzzle, and Sierra was staring at it as though it were, her Nobel Prize dissertation, and she couldn't figure it out.
Who was working on it with her?
Vetus, actually.
Vetus? Okay.
Yeah.
I
he choked along with her.
Yeah, I do feel like he was actually moving pieces, though, and she was not.
Speaking of puzzles, though, how about John's performance at Redemption Island?
I was really impressed by that, because it seemed like no sooner did he, get the puzzle pieces than his puzzle was complete.
It really did seem like, oh, John got the key, and John's done.
I guess that's his doctor background there. He's used to putting things together. Because obviously, a human bone is just like a Survivor puzzle.
I'm pretty sure that's how it's laid out there. There's like a design on your bone, and then, the doctors, obviously, they just put together a design. It's very simple.
Right. The hip bone's connected to the puzzle piece that's gray on the top and white on the side.
Exactly. That's what medical school is. It's just a bunch of Survivor puzzles over and over.
That's right.
So John dominated that challenge, which of course made me look like an idiot because last week I predicted that John would be the one to lose the challenge, and my girl Marissa goes home.
I thought both of you guys said Marissa, or did you not want to say Marissa?
I didn't want to say Marissa because I was on board Team Marissa.
Got it.
And that may be in some small part because she replied to me on Twitter. I'm a sucker.
Well, there you go.
Anyway, we once again had the issue of the Redemption Island players coming out and just throwing shade at Brad Culpepper. What did you think of that?
Yeah. I think that you guys have been talking about this, but he really just makes such a great goat. And it's not even that he's playing it wrong. It's just that his personality with the way he's playing it is just absolutely killing people. And it's the type of thing where I think if his team was winning, people would love him. But they're not. They're losing every challenge.
Right. We'll actually discuss later about exactly how badly they're losing at these challenges. But you did kind of hit on something there. Caleb actually called himself a potential GOAT at the Tribal Council, which you mentioned Brad is the GOAT, and Brad truly is the best GOAT that's out there right now. But do you think that Caleb's connection to Colton actually makes him a good GOAT to have around?
I don't think so. And the reason why I don't think so is because it seems that if you spend 5 minutes with Caleb, you'll realize how little he has to do with Colton and just how solid a guy he seems. Now, there might be some people who, if he's seen in a final 3 that might be thinking, well, if I give this money to Caleb, Colton might get some of it.
Jeff Probst might be one of those people.
Yeah, I think Probst would actually would bring it up sooner than anyone else would.
He would dive on it like it was a grenade. No!
But I think Caleb he just seems like a very likable person, and I don't think people are going to hold Colton against him, especially because Colton goes out so early in the game. I think had Colton stuck around longer, and it did seem like forever, even though he, went out in 3 episodes. But I think had he stuck around longer, then it would hurt Caleb more. But if Caleb gets to the end, he's going to have like 30 days in between. And that's an eternity on Survivor.
It's a long time to forget Colton. And it really only took me 2 days to forget Colton, so I can understand.
Yeah. So, I think I don't think he's a GOAT. What I think, though, is that Brad labeling him a GOAT is a signal of Brad's desperation this episode.
You think he basically threw his plan out in front of everybody?
I think Brad, I think basically what's happened, the blowback that's been going on at Redemption Island and the reactions that Brad has been getting from voting everyone out had him running scared this episode. And so his bringing up the point that voting out someone so that it wouldn't anger the other tribe, I think is a sign that he knows he's already boned and he doesn't know what to do about it.
Yeah, I kind of got that same impression that he realized that maybe this game plan that he had wasn't exactly working out the way he'd hoped, and so he was sort of scrambling and trying to readjust mid-game.
Yeah, and it seemed that, when his only option to readjust is Caleb, and Caleb actually is in a very good position, you can tell that he's really grasping at straws.
I think what happened, too, is that obviously Brad thought he was running that alliance, and it seems pretty clear to us in watching the episodes that it's more of a Vetus/Hayden/Caleb trio that's running that alliance, which only leaves 4 if you're calling it a 4-man alliance. Leaves Brad as the odd man out.
When John was there, I think Brad had more control over the alliance.
I think they've always been allowing Brad to believe he had control over the alliance, but I don't think he ever really did.
Right. No, I mean, I do agree with that. I'm just saying that I think John was actually his biggest ally, which, of course, makes the removal of John last week even funnier in retrospect.
So, speaking of Brad's strategic decisions here, do you think that the way Brad is playing the game is actually going to affect Monica's game?
Well, I have to say, my favorite part of the episode that I actually forgot about because so much stuff happened afterwards, but I thought was possibly a really great move in the beginning, and I want to talk to you about it, was Monica burning the clue.
Yeah, that's definitely, as Probst said, that's a first.
I thought that was a really smart move for her, and this is why. She's in a 5-person alliance, but she knows she's the 5th. And if she takes the clue, they suddenly have to think to themselves, can we trust her? And they might target her immediately just as they targeted, just as other people targeted John. I think the best move is, as you and Andy have discussed in the past, is to share it with her alliance. But in absence of that, why even tempt fate and just burn it?
See, actually, I think that her burning it was an even better idea than sharing it with her alliance, because here's why. So, as you mentioned, she is the 5th wheel of that alliance. So if she goes and shares it with her alliance and everybody's looking around for it, say Tina finds it instead, Monica is still the 5th wheel in that alliance, and now Tina has an immunity idol.
Yeah, no, so no, you're right. Burning that clue I thought was really smart.
And, of course, who suggested burning the clue? Brad. So Brad is apparently good at steering anybody else's strategic game except for his own.
Was it Brad? I didn't remember that part of it. I remember.
Yeah, Brad said, just take it, throw it in the fire.
You're right. And then I think a couple of the other returnees seconded that. They also said, yeah, burn it. I think maybe Tina or maybe Horace, one of those two, I think also agreed with that.
I'm disappointed that John and Candace didn't just say, hey, Jeff, go ahead, burn it. I don't care. Rather than even suggesting that he give it to somebody.
They were shocked that she burned it. It seemed they were very surprised by that.
Yeah. Well, we've seen that Candace, her strategic moves often backfire, and so this was yet another example.
Yeah. Though I do like how it was John's decision, and before he could even do anything, Candace is like, "Give it to Monica," and Probst says, "Do you always do what she says?" And he goes, "No."
But this time, yes.
You could I just read that no as, yeah, he always does what she says.
Yeah. In his defense, they're a power couple. She can wear the pants every now and then, I guess.
Agreed. Especially because it is her game, not his.
Right. So, speaking of those family members, they're the ones getting all the airtime, mostly because they keep losing.
It's hard to give airtime to the winners.
Right. So, at this point, we're pretty narrow on that tribe. We're pretty thin. So, I kind of wanted to get your opinion on the possibilities for winning of those people that are left on that tribe. We'll start with Hayden. What do you think Hayden's chances are?
Hayden has kind of come into his own the past couple episodes, it seems. He's kind of taken on the narrator role of that tribe. He's the one that's describing what's happening, where the plans are going, and when things get confusing, you can see it on his face. On the other hand, he was the one guy that did not vote for Brad in the revote.
He actually went back and forth on that too. He scratched out several times.
Yeah, I actually found that really funny that he crossed out Sierra when he started to write it, and then still wrote Sierra.
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of like, I thought about writing Brad, but no, I'm still going to vote you out. So it kind of sends the message to Brad, if he had stuck around, hey, I did consider voting for you, but I did vote Sierra.
Yeah, I think Hayden has a decent shot, but I don't think he's going to do it. And the reason why is I don't see what alliance he's going to find himself in that's going to take him to the end.
Here's the things that I think Hayden has going in his favor. Like you mentioned, he's a good narrator. Our past couple seasons, the best narrators have been Cochran, Malcolm, guys that get deep into the game. So at the very least, it seems like if he's getting that much screen time, maybe he is getting deep into the game.
Yeah, I think he's in for like a Reynolds-like finish, like maybe like top 8.
I think that's a pretty good comp for him. I feel like, although he didn't start off quite as douchey as Reynolds did, but
he's actually surprisingly likable. I thought my first impression of him was that he was kind of douchey, but I found myself, I think he's a little savvier than I thought he was, and he's pretty open.
Yeah, I thought douchey meathead as soon as I saw him, and now that we're getting a little more screen time from him, he does seem likable, and he actually does seem to have some thoughts about how to play the game, which is encouraging.
Yeah. No, I like him as a player. I just don't see a path for him to actually win. But I do think he'll go pretty deep. He's not getting voted out pre-merge.
No, I agree with that. And also in his favor, I think the last 2 episodes have been named after quotes from him. So good on him for that.
There you go. That's a Cochran sign right there, isn't it?
I do think, though, that, once we get to the end game, like you mentioned, I don't think Kat is in on that other side very well.
No.
I don't see a fit for him once we hit a merge. And I think he'll make the merge, but I just don't see where he goes from there.
The only possibility is if there arises a misfit alliance of all the people without family members. But I don't think there's going to be a majority of them.
That's a good point. All right, so let's move on. How do you think Katie's doing so far?
Katie seems to me to be the person that I think will actually go furthest of the newbies. And this is why. Because, again, when, with the newbies numbers decimated, you got to kind of look to the other side. And I really think Tina's going really far. And Katie is non-threatening enough so that she won't be targeted. She can fold into an alliance really easily. And she hasn't done that much, so she might get carried as a goat. I could really see Katie going to a final 3.
I don't know about final 3.
Yeah, I mean, that's best case scenario. But I don't see how she actually would win.
I think, and I think I've hit on this before in the podcast, but it seems clear to me that Aras, Vitas, Katie, and Tina had a pregame alliance going. So that's why Katie's name has never really come up as a possible vote at that tribe.
It came up the very first episode.
Right, but I mean, it was never really seriously discussed. And I think that's Vitas protecting her. And the fact that she's been pretty miserable at the challenges, not that Sierra's been much better, but
that's the thing. I think she has been better than Sierra. That's what I really think's keeping her name off the block since then.
That is a very low bar to beat, though. Better than Sierra at challenges. It's the Mendoza line of Survivor.
Yeah.
So, I can see Katie making it. She's not a power player. No. I mean, if her mom brings her to the end, Tina's beating her, and I think Tina probably realizes that too. So she'd probably be happy to bring her along.
Oh man, I would kind of love for that to be an open conversation. Tina's why'd you choose to go to the end with daughter? Because I knew I could beat her.
Pretty much. I mean, and that would be the strategy, and it would work.
Yeah.
So, speaking of moms and daughters, what about Sierra?
Sierra is... I honestly don't even know how she's hung on this long. She doesn't know how she's hung on this long. Have you seen her face after the last 2 votes?
Yeah, and I've also seen the fact that she could maybe weigh 70 pounds if she was soaking wet. I'm surprised she's hung on this long, as in not died of starvation.
Yeah, seriously. I think if they lose again, which seems to be a good bet, just because that's what they're doing, I think she's actually the next to go this time. And I don't think I don't think they're going to pull a fast one or do anything like that. I think if they lose again, Sierra's gone.
I kind of wish Andy was around this week just so I could trash his Sierra pick even more. I really never saw what he thought was going to be great about Sierra. I'd have to go back and listen to his compelling case for her at the start of the season. And I just remember thinking, yeah, her? I mean, I went with Caleb based on next to nothing, but I just never saw anything about Sierra.
You know what I think part of his case was that I remember? He thought that Laura M., her mother, was going to do well. She'd fold into her mother's alliance, and then her mother would sacrifice herself. He thought that the mothers would sacrifice themselves for the daughters.
Oh, I think Laura M. might sacrifice herself, but it's going to be right around, pre-merge.
Yeah. I don't think Laura M.'s in a great position on her tribe, but it's hard to tell there.
Right. Laura B. kind of flying under the radar on that tribe, though.
She was doing well in that challenge, too. Did you notice that she kept going down diving for that? I was kind of why are they sending Laura B. on the dive? And she kept coming up with it really quick. So
I was shocked, too. I was like, why is she your first choice? And then she hops in the water, boom, untied, and they're on to the next one.
I mean, I guess you just don't judge a book by its cover.
Right. Speaking of which... what's your opinion of Caleb at this point?
As I was saying, I think Caleb is one of those guys that you spend 5 minutes with and you like him. He kind of reminds me a little of JT from Token Cheese, but I think he actually reminds me a lot of JT now that I think about it. It might just be the whole Southern and
Are you saying JT is also gay?
I am not saying that. Though he did like Steven a lot now.
Are you then suggesting that maybe Caleb is going to backstab Tyson too at some point, just like JT did?
That would be pretty good, actually. But I don't see. I think Caleb will do well, and I think the problem is that he has no loved one. I don't. It's so hard to predict what's going to happen in this merge because we have the potential for so many crossed alliances. And when you imagine that potential, you imagine them being formed out of loved ones pairs and not out of solo players like Caleb. So I think Caleb's in a good position for now, and I think he's a good player. I don't know how far he's going to go.
Yeah, I think the scenario that works for him is the thing that you mentioned earlier, where if there's a bunch of loved ones still left that seem to be in an alliance, then the people who don't have their loved ones left just jump in and pick off the lower people of that alliance, and they overthrow the loved ones couples that are on top. I'm not too confident in my Caleb pick going all the way at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, he's just in a bad situation. He's not a bad player, but the situation is the problem.
Oh, I thought you meant the situation, the fact that he's engaged to Colton.
That's the other situation that's a problem.
He's filled with bad situations, that guy.
Yeah, seriously. Found himself in over his head a couple times there.
So, speaking of bad situations, Vytas came out of one and now is a badass on Survivor at this point. What do you think of him?
No, I agree with your assessment that they're setting Vytas up to be a returning player. He's going far. I think he's almost like a lock for top 8. And, I think he's the only one on the Loved Ones tribe that could win, though I do agree with you that he won't.
Right. I just really see Aris backstabbing him at some point this season. But I have to say, I'm impressed with the guy. I mean, we actually follow him on Twitter with our Purple Rock podcast account, which is at Purple Rock Pod. Follow us and getting a little promo there.
Nicely done.
Thank you. So Vytas, he comments on the episodes, and I mean, we can see him talking to the other survivors. The guy, he's been mentioning that he knows that Brad is a good shield for him, and he loves that Brad's taking heat. He's talking about how he doesn't want tiebreakers because he's not going to leave things up to chance. He just seems to have an understanding of the game, and I really like him.
Yeah, no, he's again, I think like Caleb and like Hayden, he's a good player. Only, unlike them, he has a much better potential merge situation because his brother's in a good position. And I think that everyone kind of likes Aris. And if you can be folded into one person on another tribe, there are two people on the other tribe that I think you'd really want to be folded into, not because they're going to win, but just because they seem very stable, and that's Aris and Tina. And Vytas as one of them.
Right. Aris and Tina seem like the ones that are running the alliance on the other side. So if you're the loved one of those two people, you're in pretty good shape if you hit a merge.
Yeah. So I think that I do think that Vytas is in good shape to go far. I think he's a very good player as well. So he could pull a surprise. But as you said, I think the edit, just the way it's being set up is I don't think he's going to win.
Right. I think we've gotten a little bit too much of that brother versus brother thing. So it's good. It's kind of like the smoking or the gun in Act 1. It's got to come back into play in Act 3,
Well, maybe he'll finally slay his dragon. Maybe that will be the story.
I think that's Coach's job, slaying dragons.
Right. Until he in turn was slain.
Yeah. In every season that he's been on, thankfully.
No, he made it to, he didn't win, but he
did make it to the end, but he didn't win. Yeah, that's a good point. And sadly, he was actually, from watching that season, he was probably, even if he wasn't the best player, he was the second best player.
The funny thing about that season is, at the time, I was happy he didn't win because he just annoyed the crap out of me that season, with all the all the religious talk and all the prayer. If I found it very grating, but having seen Brandon return and having seen Brandon go even crazier, I have to retroactively give Coach a lot of points because he was the one that kept Brandon in control for that entire game.
He housebroke him.
Yeah, I think that deserves a lot of credit in retrospect that he wasn't getting at the time because people were, I think, mad at him for taking Brandon along for so long rather than, I think people were mad at him for a couple things. But I think in retrospect, he deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, and in earlier seasons, Coach was just the fun kind of crazy. He was the entertaining, delusional type of guy that's occasionally fun to have around for some fun little narrative bits and side stories and stuff like that.
Yeah, Token Cheese, I think like the evolution of Coach was in Token Cheese, he was delusional. In HVV, he was just, I guess, kind of more of a joke. And then in his third season, he was an actual Survivor player.
Right. So, only took him, 70 episodes before he finally figured out how to play this game.
Yeah, something like that.
It wasn't that bad. 70 days on the island, more than 70 episodes. All right, so speaking of the fun kind of crazy, my boy Tyson is apparently going on coconut runs with Jervis. We got a whole segment with a hashtag for this one.
Yeah, Coconut Bandits was the hashtag there.
I love that they give us ridiculous hashtags. Like, why is hashtag Survivor not enough? Am I going to seriously have more than one thought about hashtag Coconut Bandits?
To get serious for a moment, I imagine they want to isolate when people tune in and out.
I guess that makes sense. Way to shatter the wall.
If you think about an hour show, they might want to know if people watch the first half hour, the second half hour.
But more importantly, the Coconut Bandits somehow, and it's ridiculous to even call them that, but somehow get away with drinking the coconuts because the ladies believe that there's crabs eating the coconuts. Now, admittedly, I'm not...
Was it crabs or was it monkeys?
No. They specifically said crabs.
Okay, I thought I heard monkey at one time, but I was kind of laughing throughout that segment, so I wasn't hearing too much.
I'll have to go back and verify, but I know I heard crabs at least once, and I remember thinking, what crab is cracking into a coconut and somehow drinking what's inside?
Obviously, the very rare Philippines coconut crab.
Right, and now, admittedly, I'm not like some biologist who has studied all sorts of crabs around the world, but as far as I know, crabs aren't crawling up into palm trees to dig into some coconuts for a meal. I'm pretty sure they hang out beachside most of the time.
And I have to wonder, where were they finding these coconuts that they were just picking up and seeing that they were eating? Were they just lying on the ground and when they came over, they saw the holes in them? Like, did they think the coconut had fallen off the tree, the crab had come up into the beach, punctured a hole in it, somehow ate all the middle like you would drink it, and then wandered off? Like, is this what they think happened?
Yeah, basically, if you're running a police department, don't ever hire them as detectives.
Yeah, I agree. But the thing about it is, it's kind of, going back to the whole Coconut Bandits thing, it kind of seems like a stupid risk, doesn't it? It
sort of does. I mean, it's just to go way back. It's like the Kel with the beef jerky thing way back in season 2. He may or may not have had some beef jerky, but Jerry threw some shade and said that he did, and other people got pissed because he had food and they didn't. So I don't think that this group is actually the type that would take that too personally or seriously, but it doesn't help your case.
Especially because of who it is. I think Jervis and Tyson are kind of seen as the jokers of the group anyway. So I think people would kind of laugh it off as like, oh, that's just Jervis and Tyson. If it was like, if he was still here and it was Colton sneaking off, people would be like, oh, that Colton's a bastard. He's sneaking off for food and eating our food. Not that Colton would ever actually do work, but.
That's a good point. He might sneak off, but it wouldn't be to do any sort of work. And if nothing else, if the tribe started attacking him, Aris would stand by his man and protect Tyson.
Yeah, you got to stand by Arson, now that
Team
Rachel's
Arson is a hashtag that I'm in support of.
That is a good hashtag. I'm definitely in support of Team Arson.
All right, so getting back to the show, we've mentioned, actually Andy and I discussed this last week, and he seemed to think that we were heading towards a Survivor Palau situation where one tribe, in that season it was Yulong, whichever.
I don't know the pronunciation because that's actually one of the seasons I've never seen, but I know what happened.
I was just going to say, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
So one tribe loses every single immunity challenge that season. And Andy predicted last week that we were heading for a similar situation this time. It held true this week again. I don't know how, and I have to say, as soon as I saw the challenge this week, I thought, all right, well, the returnees are going to win, because I think once you start getting into those layered challenges with lots of different elements, there's just that many more advantages for the returnees to exploit. You know, they've been here and done this before.
No, I agree. And I had the same thought that, I mean, you guys had mentioned that the only way, I think you'd mentioned this, but I think the only way they were going to win this week was if they got the classic carry the weight challenge, where
right,
they just
the
put
pure strength challenge.
Right. Which is a challenge I actually really like, but, you know, that one would just way favor the family members.
Absolutely. So after they once again lost the immunity challenge, we finally got to see the tribal council. I think we got maybe, 2 minutes before we went to tribal council of Brad just talking to the girls?
Yeah, it was Brad talk to the girls. The guys wonder why Brad isn't talking to them yet, and then Brad comes over and talks to them. It was really quick. I even noted that how quick it was because, yeah, it was about 2 minutes.
Yeah, it seemed like a pretty jarring shift. It was like, oh, so here's, you know, a lot of times you get the pregame scrambling going on, pre-tribal scrambling going on, and this time it was basically, okay, here's Brad talking to the ladies, and now he's joining the guys, and tribal time. It just felt like that might be them setting us up for, okay, yeah, nothing interesting is going to happen here.
That's what I assumed was going to happen, but that was not what happened.
It really wasn't. So we get to tribal, and I love this move when it happens. It's pretty rare, and I can't remember too many times it's been successful, which makes it even more enjoyable here. So Caleb actually throws out who he's going to vote for at tribal, which is something I love because it causes so much chaos because you can no longer privately strategize. You have to do it in front of everybody and blow up your game.
Yeah, I think it's a great move in certain situations, and I think this was one of the situations. But I think, again, I don't think Caleb came to Tribal Council thinking he was going to do this. Brad, if you remember Brad right before Caleb threw out his name, said he basically got cornered by Probst into saying that someone without a family member was a safer vote out because no one would get mad on the other side. And this is, again, me talking about how Brad was getting a little desperate and flailing this episode. When he opened that window, Probst jumped on it because, you know, Probst has been doing this for a while. He knows when there's an opening. And Caleb was smart enough to recognize who that was about. And he wasn't going to, and after Brad had been talking to the girls, he wasn't going to allow any shadiness. And he cut that snake off at the head.
Yeah, basically, Caleb, I think, realized that his back was kind of against the wall. And even if it wasn't in this specific vote, it was going to happen. So he had to act, and he just recruited the girls into a 3-person alliance right there, showed them the numbers, said, look, us 3 against them 3 at worst, we'll at least tie. And that's exactly what happened.
And I think Caleb knew that one of Vitas or Hayden would not risk rocks.
Right. So that was the scenario. We got the tie, and for those of you that I can't imagine there's people that are listening to this podcast that don't already know this rule, but if there's a second tie this early in the game, what they do is draw rocks for everybody, unless you have immunity, which in this case there was no one with immunity because we're not post-merge yet. So we almost had a rock drawing moment. We go back and we have the revote, and Vitas, again, the guy just thinks ahead. He knows, like, all right, I can't risk my game by leaving this up to chance. I know that Caleb and Katie are going to keep their votes for Brad. I may as well flip with them because, you know, I can pick up another human shield later on.
Right, and this is the thing. It doesn't hurt his game that much to have Brad gone now. He's still in the majority alliance. He's still tight with Caleb. He knows that he seems to have pretty good relations with Katie as well. So he knows that he's still in a fine position. The only thing it costs him is his human shield. Now, not flipping on Brad immediately gives him, the option of preserving his shield in case something weird happened. But but once the tie comes up, yeah, he's gonna flip. Yeah,
I do blame him though for not making a purple rock come up in this episode and just giving us some free promo / search engine optimization stuff on Twitter.
Yeah, that is a shame because we've only ever seen one purple rock. So
that's right, and it was such an amazing moment that many, many years later, this amazing podcast named itself after that move. So, any other final thoughts about the episode? I mean, the final vote was was good. I loved the flip, and I loved that Hayden actually went back and forth, couldn't decide. It really, Vitas' move was the only move for him to make.
Yeah, and Hayden, it really amused me how he scratched out the name. On both votes, he scratched out the first letter of the name and ended up writing Sierra anyway. It's like both times he thought very hard about voting for Brad, and both times he decided not to. Do you think there's going to be any blowback on him for not voting Brad?
No. I mean, I honestly think, as you mentioned earlier when we were going through the chances for the people on this tribe, there's really one, maybe two of them that have a chance to get too far. So it's fun to talk about for now, but long term for the game, no, there's not going to be a big blowback from that. I do think, though, that it probably, at least in the short term, helps Caleb's position if people think that Caleb was the one that masterminded getting Brad out, because Brad has such a poisonous reputation at this point.
Yeah, and it makes Caleb easier to fold into an alliance post-merge if because he's the one.
Right, exactly. And he's, as we said, he's a charming guy. You can talk to him for 5 minutes and trust him. He's got that Southern boy trust going on. And it's possible he ends up in alliance. I still don't see him making it very far, but it helps that he's gotten rid of Brad, that he's managed to hang on, that he scrambled and kept himself in the game.
No, I agree. I think, and again, I think he's actually a pretty good player. I just think that, yeah, he's not in a situation where he has a lot of options.
I should note that his back was against the wall, much like his fiance's, only Caleb managed to stay in the game and actually succeed in keeping himself in the game and getting rid of someone else. Just want to throw a little bit more shade at Colton at this point.
Yeah, I don't think that's even necessary, because I think in all of 5 episodes, Caleb has shown that he's a better player than Colton is.
I don't even think that it took that long.
Yeah, good point.
So let's get into some of the segment that people love about this show, the historical segment. We love, since we're Survivor nerds, we love talking about previous seasons. The one topic that I came to mind when watching this episode was Brad is that leader / alpha male type that he thinks he's running the show. He needs to feel like he is. Everyone else at least lets him believe that he's running things. Can you think of a time that strategy has worked out well for somebody?
So the only time I think someone by that description has won, to my knowledge, is in the season I already mentioned not seeing, which is Tom Westman.
Right. That's really the only one that comes to mind for me, too, is Palau. Tom really was kind of that alpha male leader of that group. It really helped that they eliminated the entire other tribe through through immunity challenges. But still, he held on and ran that ship the entire time, start to finish.
Yeah. The other person I think succeeded as this figure, and it's been a long time since I've seen this season, is Colby. I think he was kind of the original Survivor alpha male, though he's a bit younger than a lot of the guys that kind of fall into mind as the leader type. But he was really kicked ass that season until he made one fatal mistake at the end.
Yeah, he did. And his fatal mistake is on this season.
That's right.
So I don't know, because again, it's been a really long time since I watched that season. I don't know if he was I feel like he was just the challenge dominator. I don't know that he was really the leader of that tribe. He may have been. I mean, it's just been such a long time since I've seen that one. But
the one thing I remember was that Tina and him were close the entire time. And she allied herself with him, I think, because he was, if not a leader, he was someone that everyone looked to in a way.
So I'm sure there's a long list for this one. What leadership role person do you remember having the most disastrous results?
Okay, there's a couple. One that I think actually is fairly comparable to Brad is Dave from China. And I don't know if you remember Dave, but he was the guy on the other tribe. He was this like real workaholic guy who'd work around camp, and he tried to lead his tribe and everything. And he was kind of like the taskmaster dad, only everyone hated him. It seemed like every episode, someone else on his tribe would get pissed off at him, and he left after like 3 episodes.
Yeah, I do remember, Dave, because I actually very recently watched China for the first time. And yeah, it was basically exactly like you said. He saw himself as the leader of the tribe and nobody else did. He grated on everybody's nerves and they got rid of him really quickly.
Yeah. The other example that I think is kind of a mixed bag and I think can kind of show how leadership is all about situation is this is from a season I know you haven't seen, but Terry Dietz from Panama, Aris's season. He was an older male, very physically fit. Everyone like on his tribe worshipped the guy, like literally worshipped the guy. They would never even think of moving against him. They thought that he could always pull a rabbit out of his hat. But he went in down numbers at the merge, and despite the fact that he never lost his leadership position, he basically would have had to win out immunity the entire way, which he almost did. Lost in the last one. But he was a guy who, in the good situation, had he gone in with numbers, I have no doubt he would have won that season because that tribe of his literally just worshipped him. But in a bad situation, he was boned.
Speaking of bad situations, so my pick for this, because I remember this one pretty vividly, the first name that jumped to mind for me was Russell. That's not Russell Hantz from Samoa. I know his name is actually Russell Swan, but it's just more fun to call him Russell, not Hantz. So in that season, they actually had an explicit, this person is the leader, pick your leader now. And they gave him whatever corny name it was, the Medallion of Power or something like that. And it basically made him the leader of the tribe, and he got to do some ridiculously minor tasks for the tribe, pick certain things for them, blah, blah, blah. But at a certain point, everyone realized, we're just going to keep this guy around as the figurehead. He's not actually the leader. And then he almost died in a challenge. So right. I don't know that it actually backfired on him so much, unless you come to the conclusion that he was trying so hard because he was supposed to be the leader. Right. Yeah, he seriously almost died. It was pretty scary.
Yeah, no, I do remember Swan. And the thing about that situation was, he might have actually been able to hold that tribe together better than other people, because having that, like, one person at the center that even though people will vote out at a certain time, but still kind of keeps everyone in line with the alliance, because everyone knows that he'll go first, basically, when the alliance turns on each other. It's kind of like the Phillip in a lot of ways of last season. Phillip at the center, he really held that alliance together, and once he was gone, they started thinking, well, what's going to be the shakeout now? It's like, sometimes just having one person there can provide stability, and it's not always the person that's going to win.
Right. And I think that was a pretty good point with Phillip. Phillip actually did have some utility in that alliance last year. It wasn't the utility that he thought he brought to the alliance, but he actually did have some use for them.
He had a lot of utility, I thought.
I will say, though, that Russell, not Hantz, when he came back for that second season,
he repeated the exact same mistakes in the Philippines, I thought.
Well, except without the almost dying part. But I just wanted to note that in his confessionals in that season, he mentioned something like, I was willing to die for this game. That's actually terrifying and sad. You really shouldn't be willing to die for the game. It's $1 million. It's okay after taxes. According to Jeff Kent, it's only $600,000.
Right. Thanks, Obama.
Exactly. So he provided the laugh line of the season for me in that one.
Well, it was also funny in that season how he was like, I don't want to be leader. I don't want to be leader. Okay, I'll be leader. And Denise, and what was so funny was Denise and Malcolm just spent the entire time with him looking at each other like, oh my God, what's up with this guy?
Yeah, that season was a better example of his exact shtick running thin again. Like Malcolm and Denise just rolling their eyes and saying, okay, you're the leader, patting him on the head. When it was clear, as we saw later on in the show, they were always the ones with the power behind that group.
Yeah.
So let's get into some fun, nerdy insider AV Club discussion. At this point, if you're not an AV Clubber, you're probably not the least bit interested. We're going to talk about the AV Club Survivor League that we do. the only thing you might be interested in if you're not already a member is that you can become one, not this season because it's too late, but next season we do a pick 4 where you just pick for any 4 survivors. We total up their points throughout the season. We have various categories that they get points for: finding immunity, winning immunity, rewards, voting people out, those sorts of things. Nice objective categories, not like hottest or, funniest, whatever it might be. So anyway, we do a small league draft, and we have each person picked 2 people. It was a snake style draft. So if you got the first pick, you also got the last. And as of right now, the person who had the first pick is actually in first place. He ended up with Aris and Colton, and it's Count Bulletsula. Really, it's Aris is carrying the load for him there. Colton has 5 points and will remain at 5 points. And pulling up the rear, little Emma Adderall, 5 points total. She has Vetus and Rachel. Rachel has 1 point at this point, and she's done. So she's putting all her eggs in the Vetus basket and hoping that that shakes out for her. You, on the other hand, are squarely in 4th place right now. The top 5 are guaranteed to come back for next season. You've got Tina and John. How are you liking your team right now?
I still feel very strongly about the Tina pick. I honestly think that she is in the best position of the returnees. And the only reason I'd say she's in a better position than, say, Aris is because Aris is athletic and he is just a more visible target. Tina has the ability to kind of slide under the radar. Despite the fact she's won $1 million, I still feel like she has that ability.
So you're saying she's the new Sandra?
I think so, actually. Only less, I'm trying to think of the word.
Sassy.
Yeah, sure. Less sassy.
She's not going to do the I can get loud too, what the F-bomb?
Yeah, she will not do that. No, Tina's game, I think, is pretty obvious at that point. She finds a rational, level, calm-headed young male, and she casts herself in that shadow.
I will say that if she did do the I can get loud too, what the F-bomb, I would be in love with Tina.
Yeah, that would be pretty great. And then John, John, if he comes off Redemption Island, he's gone soon anyway. So I feel that he has as good a shot as anyone at coming off Redemption Island, especially because he crushed that puzzle.
He really did.
But yeah, I'm not feeling too great about that pick at the moment, but I think that was the best I had there.
Okay, so let's do a quick breakdown of everybody's team. I'll name off the person and their players, and you tell me what you think their likelihood of success in this game is.
Sure.
As I mentioned, Count Bulletsula is currently in first. He's got Aris and Colton. What do you think of that team going forward?
Again, I think Aris is in good shape. I don't think Aris will win, just because I think he's a little too obvious a threat. But he was kind of that way in the last season, and he used a more obvious threat to deflect attention away from him. He basically became the counter to the more obvious threat, and since everyone was trying to get the more obvious threat at, he stuck around. And
again, that's a season that I'll have to take your word about, because it's one of the few that I haven't seen.
Yeah.
All right, so second place right now is The Way, who has Caleb and Laura M. What do you think about that team?
I don't think much, honestly. I think they're both in decent positions for the moment, but I don't think either of those players is cracking top 7.
Do you feel like that team cracks the top 5? Do you think that team ends up in the top half of this league?
Maybe if they get some idle play going. But otherwise, no. I think longevity will just trump them, especially because I don't think once the merge comes, they're going to be in the majority alliances.
Agreed. I kind of feel like maybe that lineup sneaks into 5th place at the end of the season, but it's really going to depend on how long Laura is dragged along.
Right. I agree. If Laura is one of the first people out of the returnees, then it won't happen. But if she is like the 3rd returnee gone, then maybe.
And I actually misspoke earlier because you are tied for 3rd. There's actually a 3-way tie for 3rd right now.
Oh,
but
wow.
The nominal 3rd place person right now, just in the order that my spreadsheet ranks them for some reason, is Robot House.
Robot House
has Brad and Kat. What are their prospects?
Yikes. I think that one is the one that's kind of looking good at the moment and is going to sink pretty quick.
Yeah, I don't know that one's staying top 5. They are both very muscular. I don't know how much that helps.
Maybe they could win some challenges.
Maybe. I don't think Brad's going to win any Redemption Island challenges. I actually think, not to spoil my prediction, but I think Brad's the next
we do have to talk prediction at some point.
We do, yeah. Oh, I should have mentioned that before we got into the AV Club talk. Now everybody's just missing this part.
Oh, well.
Well, good, because my predictions are generally wrong, so now no one will have to hear them.
Hooray!
So, okay, as we mentioned, you have Tina and John. We already discussed your opinions on them. I think you got a decent shot with that lineup. I don't know that you're going to win it, but I think you'll get top 5 with that crew.
Yeah, I think top 5's pretty good, especially when I picked Tina, I said Tina will either go first or she'll make it to the top 5, and I stand by that prediction. I think she just slides into place very easily, and if her obvious weakness as an older female non-challenge person doesn't bite her tribe in the butt, as it is not, she's going to find an alliance and she's going to stay there.
All right. Adam B., who was our winner last year, has Tyson and Candice.
I feel like he's actually in a pretty good spot. I guess it partly depends upon Tyson's health. If Tyson can get back to Spider Monkey Tyson, he could rack up some immunity points down the stretch, some individual points. But I think Candice has a pretty good shot to come off Redemption Island. Not that she'll last very long, but I think she has a good shot. And Tyson, I really feel like he's going really far this season.
Tyson, I have to say, in this episode especially, we got a little glimpse of Tyson showing some strategic mindset. Like he actually seems to be thinking about, Jervis and how Jervis would be a better alliance for him because of the Aris Tina faction that's already going, and how Jervis no longer has a loved one just like Tyson doesn't. He's clearly putting some thought into the game that I don't really remember him doing in past seasons.
If he did, I don't think it was shown because his story in past seasons was of making mistakes. I think he's a pretty savvy guy. I don't think he spends as much time thinking about this stuff as some others, but I actually think the injury is going to help him a bit because it's going to remove the onus of we have to vote Tyson off immediately, and instead it'll, just keep, Tyson's personality is actually very charming. I feel really strongly about Tyson doing well this season, and I think I think we joked beforehand that you couldn't see Tyson winning. I actually think he could win. I can maybe see a case for it now. I would love it. Don't get me wrong, but it's still tough to picture him getting to the end and winning with the jury. He is a charming guy, but he just has a tendency to say things that maybe shouldn't be said. The thing is, when Tyson burns a bridge, he burns it.
Yeah, it's kind of scorched earth policy.
Yeah.
Like, if Tyson doesn't like you, he makes it very, very clear that he does not like you.
Agreed. And, if you think about what his, final 3 might be, Jervis is part of that. And Jervis, again, likable guy, but I think Tyson's a little more respected.
Definitely. Jervis is a great goat.
Jervis, I think, is like a final 3 lock at the moment. Everyone wants to take Jervis.
He's positioned really well because nobody thinks he can win. Speaking of Jervis, so our 7th place person right now, Sheldor Stinson, who was a previous podcast guest, he's got Team Peterson, as he calls them, Jervis and Marissa.
Yeah, I think he'll probably finish in the top 5 just because I really think Jervis is going to stick around for a really long time. And that alone is going to propel him.
Someone who will not stick around in the top 5? Our boy Craig, who has Rupert and Laura B.
Yeah, you mentioned this earlier, and while Laura B is showing some more moves than we thought she had, she has, I don't see it.
Right. I should also point out, Rupert has our first instance of scoring 0 points. Even Francesca last season got a point before she ended up out of the game.
Rupert, he's a trailblazer.
He certainly is that. In 9th place right now, my usual co-host, Andy, he has Hayden and Sierra.
Yeah, no, not gonna
No.
happen.
Again, what is it about Sierra? What made people think that she was going to be good? I feel so vindicated for thinking that she just didn't have it in her. Now, of course, having said that, she's going to be the one that like floats to the end like a Sophie, and then suddenly she wins, and I'm going to be looking like an idiot.
I don't
But
think Sierra's Sophie. I'm just gonna say that. And
I think in a lot of ways she's not Sophie.
I don't think she's even Natalie White or whatever the person's name was who beat Russell and Samoa.
Well, there's no Russell for her to beat this season, so
That's the thing. I think to be that kind of floater person who wins in the end, you really have to go up against the right people in the final tribal. And I don't see those people here, and the ones I do see that are here, she would never be in an alliance with.
right. So again, Andy, he's in a tough spot because he's not getting a lot of points right now because he's got two family members, and they're not scoring because they keep losing challenges.
And neither of them has a great inroad to a potential alliance unless we get, a whole bunch of misfits together.
Right. And as I mentioned earlier, our very last place right now, and I love rubbing this in her face, little Emma Adderall, 5 points with Vetus and Rachel. In her defense, Vetus is a good pick.
I think he's going to score a lot of points down the stretch. It's just she kind of dug herself a hole.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Rachel didn't get much in the way of points before she ended up getting out. But she's really depending on Vetus to pick up some slack here and get her into that top 5. She's currently 9 points away from 5th place, so she's got a long uphill climb.
Yeah, and, the family members would have to start winning challenges, and that doesn't seem terribly likely at this point. And while we won't get a full-on oolong because we'll have a merge before they get absorbed, we should get a merge in, like, an episode or two, actually. We're getting pretty close to that point.
Is it? Is it a merge that coming that soon?
Well, okay, so I've been thinking about this, and so this is my math. We have, at the moment, 13 people left in the tribes, not Redemption Island.
Right.
Merge has been coming at 11 or 12 past couple years. I don't think they'll merge at 12 because they'll want to bring back Redemption Island as one person. So they'll go down to 11, the Redemption Island will bring back one person, and we'll have 12 people as a merge tribe.
Which to me doesn't make sense, because I feel like if you're going to do the returnee from Redemption Island, you want them brought in when there's an even number. So 10, boosting it back to 11.
Well, then maybe there'll be one more elimination, and then they'll bring back the Redemption. I don't remember what they did in the previous 2 seasons with Redemption Island. So
Nor do I. You would think I would have that up on Google and I'd look it up, but I'm very lazy, so I'm not going to. So, speaking of, let's get back to this week's episode and next week's. Let's do some predictions.
Okay.
First of all, do you think this potential you-longing continues?
Yeah, I really do. And it's just, I don't see what else is going to happen.
So assuming that they do actually lose again, which family member is going home? And I feel like I gotta know the answer.
It's Sierra. This time, there's no question. It's Sierra this time.
Right. Even Brad told her this time, hey, next time it's you. Well, he was right. Next time it is her.
Right. But yeah, I think the only way that doesn't happen is if something crazy happens and Caleb flips on the guys, but I really just don't see that happening.
All right. On the off chance that the returnees actually do lose a challenge, who do you think is the first to go from them?
I think at this point, they don't care about keeping around muscle or people who are good in challenges. I think they'll eliminate someone who they think can form bonds and potentially create, or just someone they don't like. I think it's going to be Kat, actually, because they might be worried about Hayden, and she would be I think the most likely to flip to the family members because they're all young and she's young. So I think that she would be a person that's not in the majority and that they would see as very likely flip.
Well, this is going to be boring because I'm going to agree with you. Kat's the person that I think would go too, mostly for the reasons you mentioned. They don't really need her strength. It's clearly not, they're not winning the challenges because they're so strong. And at this point, they have such a numbers advantage that they don't really need to keep winning challenges. They could really throw them if they wanted to.
Right, because at this point, it's 1 or 2 before the merge.
Right. They could just get rid of a little bit of the chaff before they hit the merge. And I think Kat is that chaff.
Yeah.
All right. Any other predictions? Do you think we're actually going to see an immunity idol come into play at some point soon?
Not before the merge, no.
So you don't think that anybody's getting the clues and figuring it out?
No, and the reason why is because I think Candice and John are going to keep winning. One of those two is going to keep winning.
And do you think they keep burning the clues in that instance?
I think that the clues coming from them, people burn. Just because I think people kind of see it at the moment as a poison. After Monica burned a clue, how could you then keep a clue?
It's a good point. Yeah, it kind of makes yourself a target if you keep the clue after someone had burned it.
Yeah. So I think it's, I mean, now, that's not to say that someone won't make themselves a target. You know, they might try to, you know, if you're on the bottom of an alliance, you still want that clue. But, you know, if you're already a target, you still want that clue. But, yeah, I don't see how anyone that's actually in a good position will ever keep that clue.
Yeah, the only thing that I can say that might actually end up saving Sierra is the incredibly small chance that Brad wins the next Redemption Island challenge, and just as an FU to his former tribe, gives Sierra the clue. I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't even think Brad would do an FU. He seemed remarkably cool about being voted out. You know, I mean, as much as we rag on Brad, he seemed good. He was good about it. He was like, okay, yeah, you know, no hard feelings. You know, that was me. You know, I'll see you guys soon.
Yeah, I think Andy and I have hit on this for most of the season, but it's not that Brad's a terrible player. I mean, he's overplaying a bit, but he understands somewhat how to play the game. He's had some kernels of good thoughts that just haven't resulted in any solid executable plans at this point.
Yeah, it's just as you said, he's overplaying and his team keeps losing. You know, it's really hard to be putting yourself out there time after time when your team keeps losing. You know, if this was a normal season, he wouldn't be getting the blowback he had, and he'd probably still be in the game, but he'd still be going into the merge down numbers.
Yeah, he'd be screwed either way.
Right.
I don't know that it's necessarily a result of his bad strategy, though. I think he made the moves that he can.
No, I think it's more just, you know, he made the moves he can, and his personality, which is really something you can't hide. You can't hide your personality on this game, is just one that will grate over time.
So do you think that he's the one who loses at Redemption next week?
I think so, yes. John seems both really physically fit, and from the puzzle today, he seems to have a very sharp mind. So I think it's going to come down to Candice or Brad again, and I think just experience will elevate Candice, as it did today over Marissa.
Yeah, I have to agree. Candice, she's doing very well at the challenges. I mean, again, it really helps that you don't have to win outright to stay in the game. So there is that buffer there that you just have to not be the worst. And Candice is very good at not being the worst.
Well, you know, and again, you know, we saw, you know, if you remember her in this challenge, she was behind at first. Marissa got off to a good start with the puzzle. But Candice took her time. She laid out the pieces. She didn't rush, and she put the puzzle together at the end very quickly once she had, you know, once she, like, figured it out. You know, and I think that's just experience. She knows that puzzles, you know, you can get lucky and you can put them together really quickly, but most of the time you kind of want to think about them for a second and then start doing it before diving in. And, you know, Brad, he hasn't done a puzzle yet. He's been the brute force on every single challenge they've done. You know, they throw any type of puzzle at him, or maybe even a carnival game, you know, he's going to have some nerves there.
All right, and so I threw this one out to Andy last week, but I'll give it to you now, too. If, by some miracle, Brad wins the Redemption Island Challenge, do you think that John lays down and lets Candice move on?
Yes.
Oh, you think he's going to do the chivalrous thing?
Only because of the way he didn't do it the first time. I think he got the blowback. He played Survivor. He played for, 10 days now. He saw that he wasn't very good at it. And I think he realizes that this is her game. And I think the thing about the first day was he wanted to play. He wanted to share that experience. He wanted something in common with her. He got his chance to play. I think he's, obviously he wants to stay in. But I think he would.
Yeah, I think at a certain point, they probably had that discussion on Redemption Island and said, if this situation comes up, what are we going to do? And I feel like John has probably said, of the two of us, you have the best shot. If it happens, you can take it.
I don't even know if that's true, because I don't feel like John's because this is the thing. If John comes back into the game after Redemption Island, who's going to be there that actually knew him?
Good point.
And but as Candace said, he's way too trusting, and he's kind of shifty at the same time, which is the worst possible combination. It's kind of like the Penner combination, only without being charming and good at the game. Because Penner's a guy who no one trusts, but trusts his allies, and that always screwed him over.
Right. Also, he has an amazing narration voice.
Well, because he's Alan Alda.
He really is. All right, so any final thoughts before we move on?
I think that's it. I think you got everything out of me.
All right, so for those of you listening who slogged your way through this, you can reach us at Purple Rock Pod on Twitter. You can send us an email at purplerockpodcast@gmail.com. You can do whatever it is you crazy kids do on Tumblr. We're Purple Rock Podcast there. And until then, see you guys next week. Thanks for joining us this week, Fink, whatever it is we're calling you.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad to be here.
I hope you lived up to the hype that I gave you those several episodes.
I hope so, too.